Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/Marku42. Over 150,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player, including over 250 Doctor Who items. This broadcast is also brought to you by Marku42 Books. They carry rare and used Doctor Who books at an affordable price. Get all your Wilderness Year needs at amazon.com/shops/Marku42. Marku42 Books and Audible.com are proud sponsors of Marku42's Doctor WHOniverse.
Hi, this is Patty Hawkins here from the Geeks Comedy, and you are listening to the Marku42 podcast, a wonderful show for all generations of regenerations.
Marku42 Universe.
Welcome to Marku42's Universe, Doctor Who-Universe, that is. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten, and with me as ever are...
Patricia Helm.
And Eduardo-m-Freyre. And no, I'm not mad at the fact that you guys were making fun of me while I was trying to be a gentleman. And Trish,
I don't know what you're talking
from
about.
A cold.
And I'm Christian-basel, and I just want to let you know Kim Kardashian and I could not be happier. Or lamer.
Okay.
You know what? I think someone's going to have a little problem with that.
You do realize that Kim Kardashian hasn't done Doctor Who, so kissing her butt is not going to get her on the show.
Oh, yeah. I think we're going to leave this conversation for another time. We're going to table this. There we go. And go to...
We're going to go to Doctor Who News with our Doctor Who correspondent, Patricia Helm. Patricia, glad to have you back.
Thank you.
We are
Alrighty.
so grateful that you're back.
You be silent.
You glad to have the estrogen back, huh?
Yes.
You be silent. Let the estrogen talk.
Go back in your box.
All right. Well, today, the day that we're recording, June 8th, it is actually Colin Baker's 71st birthday.
Oh, yeah.
So that's awesome. Happy birthday to the
Happy
6th.
birthday, Colin.
Happy birthday, Colin.
Happy birthday, Commander Maxwell.
Yes.
That's the only role he's ever done on Doctor Who. Yep, didn't do another role. Nope.
So he shot Peter Davidson so he could have a birthday.
Yeah, basically. Basically, that's what happened.
And while we're on the subject of birthdays, Penelope Wilton had her 68th birthday this week on June 3rd, and we all know who she is.
Yes,
right?
and we know who she is because we watched Downton Abbey, so we know who she is.
Well,
but
she's also
she
a
was
former
also Prime Minister, wasn't she, on
Yes.
Doctor Who?
She also walked around carrying that card for everybody to see, so everybody knew by the end of the episode who she was. Hey, gents, fly down north. Prime Minister. Bathroom cleaner.
Also, I think she was also, wasn't she also the mother in Shaun of the Dead?
Yes, she was. She was. Good call. Good call.
Gotta give Edgar Wright some props. Sorry, you're not doing Ant-Man.
Yeah, what's with that? Not doing Ant-Man. That's really pissing me off. I hope they don't make Ant-Man now.
Well, no, it's happening, and now the new director is the guy who did Bring It On.
Oh, lovely.
Jazz hands. Okay, great.
So I guess this means Ant-Man's enemies are going to be evil cheerleaders.
Yeah. Well, hey, that might not be bad to watch.
Eliza Dushku's at the head of them.
Anyway,
And the
back to the
podcast
news.
just went downhill completely.
What? We're doing evil cheerleaders. If anything, it improves.
It brings up.
If anything, our male listenership right now is like, wait, I'm sorry, what? Evil cheerleaders? Huh? What?
Yeah, we got their attention in ways we didn't want this podcast to get their attention.
Trish?
So it has been announced that there is going to be a 50th anniversary box set coming out for the Day of the Doctor. And as part of this box set, they're going to include the night, the day, and the time of the Doctor. And they're also going to include the Five-ish Doctors,
Cool.
which I loved. I thought that was awesome.
I think the Five-ish Doctors was great. I think Peter directed it very well. I love the fact that they had Peter Jackson in it, and a lot of cameos, and Sylvester, Paul McGann, Peter, and Colin did great jobs. Stephen Moffat did an all right job as an actor, I guess.
Yeah, it was funny. It was really funny. I love that John Barrowman was in it, and
Oh,
they fun with
that in joke. And I know people who are like, "What's so funny about that?" They didn't.
They didn't get it?
Didn't get it.
Wow.
We had to explain to them. We had to
You
explain.
don't get out much.
It's like, geez, how could you not know that he's
I don't know.
Also, in the news, Paul McGann, he revealed that he is so eager to do an Eighth Doctor spinoff that he actually signed the online petition.
Where is that? When I heard that, I tried to track down the petition. Where is it? It's not change.org, is it?
I don't know. I'm not sure where it's at, but I had heard of it before, but I don't know where it's at. But probably you could search it.
Yeah, I'd love to have Paul McGann back. Hey, we have the 10th anniversary of the new series coming up next year. I don't know. Might be a great idea to bring him back. You know,
Exactly.
hint. Hello, anyone paging Mr. Moffat?
Now, on the show last week, I know you guys mentioned the books that are featuring the 12th Doctor that are coming out. Well, they actually released some plot synopsises on the first 3.
Okay,
Of the books.
why don't you tell us about it?
The first one is called Silhouette, and it's by Justin Richards. And the synopsis reads, Vostra, it's Drax and Jenny. Oh no, we don't need to bother them, trust me. Marlowe Hapworth is found dead in his locked study, killed by an unknown assailant. This is a case for the great detective, Madame Vostra. Rick Bellamy, bare-knuckle boxer, has the life drawn out of him by a figure dressed as an undertaker. This angers Drax the Centauran. The Carnival of Curiosities, a collection of bizarre and fascinating sideshows and performers. This is where Jenny looks for answers. How are these things connected? And what does Orestes Milton, rich industrialist, have to do with it all? As the Doctor and Clara join the hunt for the truth, they find themselves thrust into a world where nothing and no one are what they seem.
I'm going to read that one.
The second one is called The Blood Cell by James Goss. Release the Doctor, or the killing will start. An asteroid in the furthest reaches of space, the most secure prison for the most dangerous of criminals. The governor is responsible for the cruelest murderers, so he's not impressed by the arrival of a man they're calling the most dangerous criminal in the quadrant, or as he prefers to be known, the Doctor. But when the new prisoner immediately sets about trying to escape, and keeps trying, the governor sets out to find why. Who is the Doctor, and what's he really doing here? And who is the young woman who comes every day to visit him, only to be turned away by the guards? When the killing finally starts, the governor begins to get his answers.
That one sounds pretty good, too.
Yep.
Doctor Who, I don't know.
I just think of that pirate little banner that I see on bumper stickers and flags that says the beatings will stop when the morale improves or something like that. The killing will stop if you give me the Doctor.
The third one is called The Crawling Terror by Mike Tucker.
Spiders.
Mike Tucker's a good writer. I've read his stuff before.
Well, Delia, ever see a bigger insect? Gabby Nichols is putting her son to bed when she hears her daughter cry out, Mummy, there's a daddy longlegs in my room. Then the screaming starts. Kevin Appleton is on his way to school when he's attacked by a mosquito, a big one. Then things get dangerous. But it isn't the dead man cocooned inside a huge mass of web that worries the Doctor. It isn't the swarming, mutated insects that make him nervous. When the village cut off from the outside world, and the insects becoming more and more dangerous, the Doctor knows that unless he can decode the strange symbols engraved on an ancient stone circle and unravel a mystery dating back to the Second World War, no one is safe. I don't know about that one. I'm not a bug person.
Oh,
God,
bugs, yeah.
I'm sorry. As much as Unicorn and the Wasp was fun, I just oh God.
Yeah, it sounds like these are darker than a TV show would allow. I mean, I like when the book line goes places that the TV show couldn't do. That was the whole thing with the New Adventures back in the 90s, which you can, of course, here's a plug, Amazon.com/shop/Marku42 for all your wilderness year needs. You can read other books, like not these 3 because they're not out yet, but you can get other books that are Doctor Who books that are creepier or more risque or just more imaginative than a TV series could do. And the book line, including these 3 new books, does that. Stories that are too big for television.
Or watch the TV shows at 3 a.m. like on the regular stations going like, the views and opinions on this advertisement are not necessarily that of Marku 42, its advertisers, or anybody on this show.
But it
drink
is
up
our
anyway because we did a bug.
advertiser. It is our advertiser.
That's true. So
your point is moved.
Buy his books. Buy his books.
I have a book.
Now, all 3 of these will be available on September 11th this year.
September 11th. Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, they pick a great day to release these books. Oh, my God.
Giant insects.
For the last story, I guess we should probably put out the spoiler alert.
Okay, hitting it now.
All right, I don't know if did you guys see the images that were released that are from the 9th episode?
Yep.
Yeah, Ed put those up on our webpage, yeah.
Rumor title for this episode is called Flatline. That conjures a bunch of images, but they had a picture of Clara who's by herself and looks like she's investigating something, and she has the Doctor's sonic screwdriver. He doesn't just give that to anybody.
Not to anybody, no.
And the episode's going to guest star. We saw a picture of Christopher Fairbank. He's done a lot of acting over the years. He's been like in The Fifth Element and Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tide. He was in the '89 Batman and just been in various British television shows as well. And it looks like he's doing some kind of community service in this episode. It shows pictures of these walls in this tunnel. It almost looks like drawings of people, but they're like facing the wall. So it's like the backsides of all these people. It's just really weird.
Well, flatline and pictures on the wall, I mean, maybe people are becoming flattened, and made to be images on a wall.
And lined up on the wall.
Yeah, kind of reminds you of Fear Her in a way, kind of.
Did anybody see the theory that I posted on the website when I shared the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the vibe I'm getting. I'm getting like a Fear Her vibe, and I think, why does Clara have the sonic screwdriver? Maybe the Doctor becomes a victim of this.
Oh, interesting.
Something that
the
pushes.
Doctor goes flatline.
Maybe. I mean, something that kind of pushes this along is after the story hit later on during the day, they posted updated pictures, and you had a shot of what looks like a fence with a bunch of missing persons posters, and there were flowers and candles all around.
And then there was like another picture of a wall with it was like a graffitied picture of looked like glass breaking, but it was like breaking due to like an explosion over like a city skyline.
I'm thinking everybody's backside is facing out, so I'm thinking this is the planet of Tercerus from The Curse of Fatal Death. It's right before the sofa regional comfort.
So what? The reason that their backsides are facing the viewer is they may be trying to send a signal?
No, they discovered fire, and the planet's gone.
Either way, all these, all the spoiler stuff that we get all the time, it just makes me more and more excited for this season just to start. It's like, can you just please tell us the date so we can start counting down?
How many of you guys are going to the David Tennant movie extravaganza next week?
I'm not sure if I'm going to go or not, just because, it's on a work night.
It's on two work nights. They're showing the Cybermen two-parter from David Tennant's first season in movie format on June 16th, and then on June 17th, the Tuesday night, they're showing Wings in 3D that David Tennant narrates, and it's going to be amazing. And it's playing like all over the country and around the world, from what I understand.
Honey mustard or barbecue sauce?
Ranch.
Oh no.
Oh, blue cheese.
Blue cheese.
I like thermonuclear sauce on it and a little bit of ranch, just in case, but usually not. Maybe some carrot sticks, and in 3D, it'll be easier to eat than just trying to pick up flat-lined paper.
Oh, and hey, for those of you in South Florida, I got another one: Chicken Kitchen's mustard curry.
Can you imagine people actually paying tickets to watch David Tennant on a screen eat chicken wings for 90 minutes?
Well, that's what he'll do.
No, this is for Chop.
He'll be eating wings while talking about birds. It's going to be interesting. And it's in 3D, so it should be cool. I've been trying to figure out if the only way they can get people to watch Wings is if they give them a free Doctor Who episode. Just saying.
Well,
maybe it's not good. I don't know.
If that was true, they would have it on the same night, because why they would? People that just want to see Doctor Who are just going to go the first night.
Yeah,
probably true.
Trish is right. It might not be that it's not very good. It might just be that a documentary about birds is not going to fly well unless you kind of add a little bit of incentive. And it's like, oh, it's narrated by the 10th Doctor, and hey, before that, let's have some fun with a 10th Doctor episode.
It is kind of a curious question. Why not put this on BBC America or, just one of a History Channel? Or we know it's about planes. I would assume.
No, about birds.
It's about birds.
It's about birds. Okay.
Nature.
Yeah.
I just saw a poster.
Not wings of planes.
And it's also
birds are nature's planes.
And it's also in 3D. So if they wanted people to see it in 3D, because not everybody has a 3D television.
So that's going to be an amazing event in June, but in July there are going to be some more events going on. Christian, do you have anything you want to tell us about that might be interesting to our listeners?
Yeah, we're going to the FSC. We're going to Florida SuperCon.
Woohoo!
At its new home over in Miami Beach.
The Miami Beach Convention Center. Yeah, it's going to be great. A lot of people are going there, including who?
We got Nev McIntosh.
I was making a joke there. I said who.
Oh.
No, go ahead, Christian.
I think it's Mark's turn to be in the corner.
We got
Mark's turn to be in the corner for Bad
We have Nev McIntosh.
As I accidentally call her Nev Campbell. We have Dan Starkey. And one other name eludes me right now.
Deep Roy.
Deep Roy.
Is going to be there.
Yeah,
Doctor Who guests. There'll be plenty of other guests. We've got the cast of Arrow is going to be there, and a lot of other guests.
She included John Barrowman.
Yeah, too bad it doesn't include John Barrowman. That's a shame.
For Game of Thrones fans, got the lady who played Roz, and hey, for the ladies, they can get their picture taken with Khal Drogo himself, Jason Momoa.
And Christian, Ed, and myself will be on several panels, so come on down to Florida SuperCon. Listen to the commercial coming up right in just a few moments for more details on Florida SuperCon.
And if you want to pick the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS, it will be there as well.
That's right. The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS will be there to take pictures of you holding the TARDIS. That'll be cool. And then in the middle of July is the Day with the Doctor, Hurricane Who, a special event in Orlando. That's going to be fun. Paul McGann's going to be there. And Christian and I will be there, right, Christian?
Absolutely.
I'll be selling books, and we'll be definitely with a recorder interviewing you out there, the fans of Doctor Who, to put on a later broadcast of our podcast. Now the news is done. The promos are done. Let's go to a commercial break. When we come back, we've got our very special guest. I don't know why we didn't mention him at the beginning of the show. Scott Viguie, or Doctor Geek of Doctor Geek's Laboratory. He's a great guy, and we will be interviewing him in just a moment.
If it helps, his name is going to be mentioned in the show notes, and not to mention, there's probably going to be a hint in the title. So,
and there are
balances.
There are of course links to his site as well on the webpage. So definitely check out mark-who42.net. We will be right back with more of Mark Who 42's Universe and Dr. Geek.
This is Ian McNeice, and you're listening to Mark Who 42.
Comic-Con is coming to Miami.
Join us at Florida SuperCon, 4th of July weekend at the Miami Beach Convention Center. Florida SuperCon has 4 days of live events featuring comic book artists, TV and movie stars, anime voice actors, video games, cosplay, and wrestling. Come meet the stars of Arrow, Game of Thrones, Doctor Who, Community, Regular Show, Power Rangers, Spartacus, and so much more.
FloridaSuperCon.com.
See you there.
Say, Jarvis, is it that time?
The house party protocol, sir?
Correct.
The Pull Bag is GCRN's comic book review and discussion-based podcast. Join me, your host, TFG and Mike, and the rest of the GCRN crew as we make our way through the comics we are reading. Inside the Pull Bag, you'll also find back-issue classics and origins episodes of how we got into comic reading. You can find the Pull Bag every Wednesday on iTunes and on www.geekcast-radio.com. Make your great escape into comics and jump into the Pull Bag today.
Jarvis. Hey.
All wrapped up here, sir. Will there be anything else?
The voice of Christian-basel, take one.
Hi, I'm Christian-basel, and I would like to provide my voice for all your voiceover needs, such as...
Okay, like an announcer.
Like a what?
Like an announcer.
For all your voiceover needs, such as animation, radio, announcements, introductions...
Now an old man.
I can even record voicemail for all the Meshuggahs that call you.
A pirate.
Arr, and it won't cost you a lot of treasure for me services. Arr.
Creepy movie voice.
Just call 407-761-2679. 407-761-2679, or email voiceofchristian-basel@yahoo.com. Well, how was that?
That's a wrap.
Welcome back to Marku 42's WHOniverse, Doctor WHOniverse, that is. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten, and with me, of course, are Eduardo-m-Freyre and Christian-basel. And we have a special treat for you. We've also got Dr. Scott Viguie, or Doctor Geek, as he calls himself. Doctor, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Hello, everyone.
It's great to have a doctor on the show. I'd like the doctor on the show, but a doctor works for me.
Well, how do you know he's not the doctor?
Well, he could be the doctor, and well, he's the doctor of our show right now.
I appreciate that, but being an American, I think the chances are a little slim that I'll eventually be the doctor. But you never know.
Well, hey, I was lobbying for the role of the 12th Doctor for a while, but I guess BBC wanted to go with a Brit.
Yeah, they wanted to go with the Brit, and I'm sorry, but the guy on the box that does the news introduction doesn't have a good enough accent for being the doctor either.
My God.
Well, thank you for hurting my feelings. I'm going
You're
to go
welcome,
into a
Box.
corner. I'm going to go into a corner now and cry. Thank you very much for ruining my day.
Hey, I already got the corner.
Yeah, Christian's got
Get out of the corner.
Christian's
Oh,
I
my
need to use the
corner.
corner. I need to use the corner for trauma. Get away from the corner. Go find another corner, Christian.
So, Scott,
Got the corner.
tell us a little about yourself.
Alrighty. Well, I'm Dr. Scott Viguie. Let's see. I'm an archaeologist. I'm an attorney. I'm an author and an actor.
Wow.
Yeah.
A's covered.
I got the A's covered. The joke around here is that if I go to grad school one more time, I've got to move on to the B's. You know, maybe biochemistry, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, honestly, I'm just sort of addicted to higher education, and that's kind of what I do. I'm the creator of Doctor Geek's Laboratory, which is an audio show that is devoted to STEM outreach, and we use science and fiction to explore the future that has not yet come to pass.
Mark, I've just figured it out.
What?
I've just figured it out after he just gave us his resume.
Yeah.
He's not the doctor. He's Buckaroo Bonzai.
Yeah.
We have Buckaroo Bonzai on the podcast.
And one of these days, I'll tell you why that watermelon is there.
Oh my God.
Hey, yes on one and no on two.
Awesome.
Okay, so what exactly is STEM?
STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. It's a movement within education to try to encourage people to go into the sciences. And as we like to say, we include art in that because Dr. Geek's Laboratory is science fiction, so we're using our art to encourage STEM, so we're really STEAM.
Ooh, STEAM.
Yep.
I like that. I like how you can make acronyms out of almost anything and they work.
I know, it's great, isn't it? No, so yeah, exactly. I mean, how this whole thing started for me was, remember back in 2000 how they had that Avery Brooks commercial? I think it was for IBM, and it was all in black and white, and he's standing there saying, you know, it's the 21st century, where's my flying car? Where?
Right. Yeah, I
Where?
heard that.
Yeah, well, and the whole point of that commercial is IBM saying, well, you don't need flying cars because we have software where we can telecommute. And there's something about our generation and maybe, you know, just basically everybody who feels a little disenfranchised with the fact that this isn't the 21st century that I was expecting. And
does anybody remember, I think AT&T, I remember growing up, had these commercials where they'd show off all these technologies and they'd be like, have you ever tried to do this like this? Have you ever tried to do this like this? You will, and the company that'll bring it to you is AT&T.
Oh, yeah, that was narrated by Tom Selleck. I remember those.
Oh, yeah.
That was Tom Selleck?
Yeah, and I remember the one that was like you could drive through the toll gate, and now we got E-Pass.
Right, and then I think there was another one. It's like, oh, you could renew your driver's license photo at a kiosk. You know, there was all these like.
Please, dear God, have that happen.
There's like. But it's like there were all these. I remember those commercials. It was AT&T showing all these technologies, and yeah, some of them happened, and some of them it's like, you know, to quote Red Foreman, "Where's my jetpack?"
Right. Well, exactly. And the whole point of Dr. Geek's laboratory, rather than being on the couch and complaining about the whole thing, the idea was, well, get up, get involved. Here, let me introduce you to the people who are working on these things. Our first shows were about the flying car, and we actually interviewed people who are working on building a flying car, Terrafugia's Transition, or Moeller International Sky Car. And so, it's like, while our show has a continuing storyline and there's the wacky adventures of Dr. Geek and his staff, when we actually do investigations, we actually interview real scientists and entrepreneurs and tinkerers with the idea that, hey, if you want a flying car, here's what's involved, here's the bigger story. And in regards to the flying car, it's not the technology that's really the issue. There's a lot of societal issues that have to be addressed, because it's not really feasible to launch from your backyard. If you think every Monday morning with that leaf blower is really annoying, can you imagine if someone's using a VTOL car to launch up into the stratosphere? I mean, that's pretty noisy. So it's little things like that. Are our communities ready for that sort of thing? And that's why I think Terrafugia's Transition was a good attempt, because they're using the local airports. And there's a lot of private aviation airfields out there real close to where everybody lives today, and their flying car, the Transition, is able to utilize that a lot easier than, would say, the Moeller Sky Car, even though the Moeller Sky Car looks more like what you would hope a flying car would look like.
Forget the flying cars. Thanks to Back to the Future, we're supposed to have the flying skateboards next year.
Next year, man.
The hoverboards. We're supposed to have them.
But you're gonna have it's the flying cars. It's the flying cars. It's the hoverboards. It's the Hydro Cook pizza. It's the multi. Well, we already have multiple channel TVs. Should we have
Jaws 13 or something by now?
I think Jaws. We're supposed to see Jaws 13. I know that with TVs. I know we have picture-in-picture, but we don't have like the multiple channel feed that Marty McFly Jr. was looking at. We don't have the scenery channel. We don't have robotic dog walkers. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're a little behind.
We're a little behind, but thanks to Arthur C. Clarke, we're 13 years behind reaching Jupiter right now.
But ironically, the Russians and the United States are having a little issue about access to space, so that kind of jives all of a sudden. It's very funny about that. But Back to the Future, the great thing about it is it's something that people are trying to strive for, and while the hoverboard might be a little bit beyond us at the moment, it gets people, it gets their imagination going, which is another part of the whole STEM idea, is that, to quote Arthur C. Clarke, to know what is possible, you have to venture a little bit past it into the improbable. And that's why it's fun to try to tackle those things. And if nothing else, ironically, we're going to be getting those Nike shoes with power laces. They've actually said that they're going to release them next year. So at least that'll happen.
Oh.
Yeah, well, and hey, I guess we can count our blessings. We didn't have the eugenics wars in the late '90s, and so far, as far as I know, we're not going to have a devastating nuclear war that will give us a post-apocalyptic horror with some sort of weird kangaroo court.
Oh yeah.
Well, that hasn't happened.
We're not there yet, but.
Yeah. I think everything's been delayed. I think it's just been delayed. I think it's still coming.
Well,
I'm
gotta cross the fingers, man.
I'm getting my pet's medication through the mail, so I think we're a little bit on par, a little bit there. Maybe a couple of years behind, but we'll work on it.
I did. When I was a kid, this was like I was 10 or 11 years old. I remember reading a short story in my textbook that actually predicted. Buying off the internet.
Oh, very cool.
The main character was a little kid who was sick at home from school, and they were actually, the parents were actually trying to buy something off the computer. And I remember they had a big twist at the end where the parents left the house, and when they came back, they had a bicycle, and they're like, yeah, we decided to do things old school and go to an actual store instead of just using the computer.
So, Scott,
Yes,
I have a question for you. Have you invented the quadricycle yet?
No.
Quadricycle?
No. Let's see. We have a sonic servo. very much like the sonic screwdriver, although mine does work on wood, which is kind of cool.
Oh my!
You win. You are the doctor.
I absolutely. What was great about that is I was at a convention. We do a lot of conventions throughout the year, and there was a point where the Ken Spivey band does one of their slow songs, and everybody whips out their sonic screwdrivers like it's a lighter at and waves it around, all that sort of thing. And I'm like, well, hey, I want something like that, so I invented something for Doctor Geek. And one of the other fans, heard the episode and actually presented me with a sonic servo at my next appearance, which was really kind of cool. Huh? I feel very much like the Doctor. It's kind of cool.
I want to make sure you get enough plugs. Where can they find your podcast?
Okay, great. Well, you can go to our website, drgeeklab.com, and go to episodes, and you can find everything there. Or you go to the Now Playing box on any page that will be the most recent episode.
Are you on iTunes?
We are on iTunes. Look for Dr. Geek's Laboratory Podcast. We are also on Krypton Radio. We've been kind of syndicated on Krypton Radio now for about a year. It's really kind of cool. We're right after the Superman serials from the 1940s, which is really kind of cool. So you go to kryptonradio.com and look at their schedule, and you'll be able to find out where and when we're playing. I believe we started off with their Must Hear Thursdays block, but we've become kind of popular, and so they've been adding us to different points in their schedule, which is nice.
I haven't heard of Krypton Radio.
Oh yeah, it's really cool. It's sci-fi for the Wi-Fi is what is their thing, and so they have a lot of science fiction programming, obviously. Right. And beyond the Superman serials, they also have the occasional concert by Draft Punk. They're real big fans of Krypton Radio, so they've actually done 2 performances, I think, for them now. Wow. And a bunch of other stuff like that. Yeah, it's really really nice, and I actually got to go to Gallifrey 1, which is the biggest Doctor Who convention.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
In L.A., yeah.
In L.A., and got to do Dr. Geek's Laboratory Presents The Science of Doctor Who, and I got to actually meet the people from Krypton Radio. Actually, that was really kind of fun. We did everybody who was dressed up like Osgood from the 50th anniversary showed up to our panel and ended up taking pictures with us and everything like that. And while I was in the green room recovering from that, of all things, Paul McGann walked in. And It was really nice. He was a really nice guy, and he just kind of looked tired a little bit, And I said, tough day. He said, oh no, tomorrow will be the big day. And he said, how about you? And I said, well, I just did a presentation called the Dr. Geek's Laboratory Presents The Science of Doctor Who. And he kind of smiled and said, there's science in Doctor Who. And I said, well, a little wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, but yes. And I kind of told him briefly what we talked about. Because, there's all sorts of ways you could take that conversation. The first time I did that presentation was actually at Time Lord Fest in Tampa, and I tried to tackle actual time travel, but it's kind of hard. It's like giving people a PhD level understanding of physics in 10 minutes.
Well, let's talk about time travel. Let's talk about time travel.
Or did we talk about time travel already?
Yeah, very possible that it's already over. It's over, and this could be next week.
Well, yeah. What would you like to know?
Well, I mean, is time travel possible? I mean, really, do you think it's going to be possible? Can you actually go back in time?
Well, okay. Which kind of?
I know. I asked you more than one question. I did ask more than one question. Because time travel, I think time travel does exist when you go, if you could go faster than the speed of light. Somehow, the time it will pass differently. So that is technically time travel. So let's talk about back in time.
All right. So to talk about back in time, because as they say, it's all relative, and I'm not joking about that. It quite literally is. If you're here on planet Earth and you're living your life, every moment you're moving forward in time, and if you take a second out of your present and look up at the night sky, you're actually looking at the past. So you're actually experiencing the past, present, and future all at once. which is just blows my mind. But in order to actually achieve what we consider traditional science fiction and backwards time travel, you would actually need to be able to warp space-time in such a way that your trajectory would actually loop back in on itself. It's kind of hard to say this and to do this in an audio format, but essentially if you picture a straight line going forward in time and you're a dot on that line, then the only way to get back to where you were is if something was able to shift that line, and the only thing that can shift that line would be something like a black hole. And this is why what is really awesome about Doctor Who, because they've said since the very beginning that the Time Lord's ability to do time travel actually came from Omega and the black hole experiments that they did. And so, here's this little runaway line, from a show from the 60s, and yet actually that's more accurate about how time travel would work than anything Star Trek has said or anything else, or Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
So no slingshot effects off the planet. That'd be a Star Trek.
Well, the thing with that is that they also have their warp engines, so the slingshot effect is gives them an extra boost. But I mean, really, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to bend space time to the point where you fold back on yourself, and then it becomes an issue of whether or not two particles can occupy the same place in time. So then at that point, then the question becomes, what is your idea of cosmology? Are you actually doing a parallel universe when you go back in time? And if that's the case, then you end up having a situation like Star Trek 2009, where it's the past, but it's not your past. And that way you can avoid the whole grandfather problem and the whole Marty McFly problem that we mentioned Back to the Future earlier. It's okay to disrupt your own birth because it's not you, really. It's that universe's version of you. And then the question becomes, could you ever get back to your own time once you are on that new trajectory? It becomes very, very complicated. So to answer your question, do I think that it is possible? I think that it is, at least mathematically, it makes sense that it's possible. Are we ever going to be able to achieve it? At the moment, the answer is no, but I'm leaving that door open because you never know what we can achieve.
This is like having Neil deGrasse Tyson on the show. This is amazing. So if it is now, let's say in the future it is possible, and we've been visited, but regardless, do you lose your clothes when you time travel? I mean, I wouldn't want to do it. I just would not feel comfortable time traveling back if I'm going to lose my clothes.
Well, my thing is not so much the Terminator, you got to go back naked thing. My worry is, you mentioned the whole, can the same particle occupy, can two particles occupy the same space? I keep thinking back to the movie Time Cop and, what happened to the bad guy, how two versions of him occupied the same space at the same time, and he just kind of did this weird melty thing, like he just imploded in on himself.
Two TARDISes hit each other, there's time ram.
Right. Well, or there's time ram, or the Blinovich limitation effect, right? Right. With Doctor Who, their approach to time travel shifts depending on the necessities of the script.
Oh yeah.
But if you take the 50 years of televised Who and you kind of look for consistency, you would say that their version of time travel would be one where the grandfather paradox is in effect. Father's Day is a great example of that. And something where if you change something, like if you killed your own parent, then you would fade from existence. That sort of thing. And that seems to be the way that traditionally Doctor Who has approached time travel. And it's only really been since the development of the multiverse theory that people have said, well, maybe we can get around this, and that it may not necessarily be true time travel in the sense that we can't go back into our own past, but we can go into a past parallel to us.
All I wanted to say is that if Mark's right about this clothing thing, I would like to turn the Playboy Mansion into my own personal TARDIS. All over the place.
I don't think it needs to time travel. You go to the Playboy Mansion.
I'm already time
flying off anyway.
Because I don't care what time it is.
I don't think it needs to time travel.
Dr. Geek, you brought up the grandfather paradox, but there's also I forget the name of the paradox, but it's this idea that you could not change the past at all because it would end up like, say, you kill your parents, you cease to exist, but if you cease to exist, you didn't travel back in time. Therefore, you still exist.
Right. The whole idea that there is that time would find a way to kind of right itself, and again, the J.J. Abrams Star Trek kind of does that too. That's their kind of excuse for why, even though Vulcan is destroyed and why Kirk, his origins have been adjusted slightly, why everybody else was on the ship at the right time at the right place, so that by the end of the film, everybody's where they need to be. There was an interview with J.J. Abrams, and that's what he said. They're like, well, we kind of had to say that eventually, the universe of time is kind of like a lake, and once the ripple effect went through, it tried to even itself out. And that's the great thing about the whole idea about time travel. In fact, it was so funny. Time travel and teleportation, the idea of the transporters or the transmats from Doctor Who. I saw an article yesterday. I have fans send me stuff all the time, and they're like, oh, Doctor Geek, did you see this? And it was a news article, I think it was posted on Yahoo, and it said, Star Trek teleporters are possible. And I'm like, well, that's a rather bold title. Click on that link, and it's basically him taking half a page to go, well, yeah, there's a lot of issues with that. And the whole idea here is that we can do quantum teleportation, but to do it on the scale of a living human being is well beyond us, and quite possibly impossible. But I'll never say it's impossible completely. And you're like, well, okay. Granted, so people wrote this article just so that I would click on this link, but they didn't actually tell me anything new. But it's like teleportation and time travel they're like the holy grails of science fiction. A warp drive and the replicator are the two tools you need in order to have the Star Trek future. If you want to have a situation where the economy doesn't matter, or that everybody has whatever they need, you need an endless power supply, the warp drive. And you need the replicator, the ability to create anything you want.
I think if I had the holodeck, I would never come out of it, ever. In fact, I probably wouldn't want anybody to know what I was doing in that holodeck.
Oh, great. Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark, instead of Christian-basel, we're now joined by Reg Barkley.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Scott, I have a question for you. Has there ever been a project that a child has brought up to you and just completely wowed you?
Actually, there's not been a project per se, but what was really, really awesome is we were at the Osceola County Library Science Fiction Days, and we had an audience where the age range was quite massive. Everything from 7-year-olds on up to adults. And this 10-year-old, we were talking about the privatization of space and talking about what it would take and actually to be able to colonize, let's say, the moon or something like that. And all of a sudden, I get the hand shoots up and he says, well, can you talk about the health implications of a long journey, let's say, to Mars? Because I believe you will be exposed to a lot of radiation. And he was so articulate and so on point that you're like, oh my God, you almost know more than I do. I was totally wowed by that. And I had this great conversation with this little boy, and we actually went into a little bit of detail talking about that and about how going from Earth to Mars and what it would take for the astronauts that would eventually colonize Mars or at least land on Mars and stuff like that. And afterwards, his mother came up to me and said, oh, sorry for all the questions. I'm like, oh, no, thank you. It's great that he's asking.
Parenting done right.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is podcasting done right. And we'll be right back with more with Scott Viguie and Doctor Geek, to those in the know, when we come back from these messages. We'll be right back.
I'm Colin Baker, and you are listening to Mark Who 42, The Meaning of Life.
I, Starscream, have taken over Transformers Prime Time. Call me Lord.
No, Starscream, we will not call you Lord, but we will announce that the GCRN is bringing everyone Transformers Prime Time. That's right, before we get into the TFG1 redone, we enter the Prime Universe. Join your hosts, TFG and Mike, Steve Megatron, Optimus Solo, and Pecan Court Michael as they cover all 65 episodes of Transformers Prime, the comics, the toys, and more. We will also have a commentary on Predacons Rising, interviews with writers, voice actors, and more. All in the latest Transformers review podcast from the Geekcast Radio Network. You can find TF Primetime on iTunes and www.geekcastradio.com. And remember,
one shall stand and one shall fall.
A female He-Man! Oh, this is the worst day of my life!
We've told the tales of Eternia, and now we head to a different dimension to explore the myths of Etheria. Join Optimus Solo and TFG and Mike as they continue their Mo2 journey by exploring She-Ra, Princess of Power. 35 podcast episodes covering the entire run of She-Ra, the Christmas special, and more. You can find Myths of Etheria on iTunes and www.geekcastradio.com. For the honor of Grayskull, we all have the power.
And we're back with Marku 42's WHOniverse, and we've got Doctor Geek with us, Scott Viguie. Scott, I got a question for you.
Go for it.
Okay. Now, bionics. Bionics, you know, it's replacing body parts with machines. Are the Cybermen a possibility? Can we go too far with bionics?
Oh, you know, I'm so glad that you asked that. Of all things, bionics is the subject that will be the investigation that wraps our second season on Dr. Geek's Laboratory. So we've actually had a chance to talk to some of the premier scientists and inventors about bionics, and what the answer to that is that the fiction, the $6 million man or the Cybermen ideas that you've seen in fiction, the reality is we are in some cases surpassing that. There's been a lot of developments in bionics. In fact, the FDA recently just approved a bionic arm that has a sense of touch and can actually be connected to the rest of your neural pathways.
Wow.
So that there is literally no learning curve. It will act like a natural arm. Now, it's not going to have a perfect sense of touch. It's not going to have necessarily a sense of heat or anything like that, but it will manipulate and articulate very much like a natural arm. And when I was doing these interviews almost like a year ago, I was talking to people and they were telling me, look, these are the types of things that are in development, and they're all connected via Bluetooth and everything like that, because as we know, everything is better with Bluetooth. But the trick is that you may actually be now susceptible to hacking, and you could come down with a computer virus. It is quite possible.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And so that old Far Side joke becomes reality. I mean, it is just remarkable. But yeah, the idea of the bionic replacement making you better, stronger, faster. It is something that is sort of happening. And what exactly is a prosthetic versus what is bionics? Obviously, it's a little bit more than just a prosthetic replacement. But, all of that and how that's working, I believe they even had a contestant on Dancing with the Stars this last year that had no legs, and she came in second. That is...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is quite remarkable. So the question becomes, if you do have a bionic hand that can connect to your neural pathways, could there eventually be people who will opt for the replacement over their natural body part? I don't doubt that there will probably be somebody that will go for it just because they want to be able to do that, or just because of identities of self. I mean, it's not impossible. I think the whole idea about the Cybermen, if you, I know that the modern Doctor Who fan is probably not familiar with the Mondos story, but us classic Doctor Who fans know how the Cybermen came about, and it was all very natural. They were trying to seek out a way to extend their life, and it was out of self-preservation originally, and so it all starts very innocently, and you keep replacing this and replacing that, and then the question becomes, how much do you replace before you're not you anymore? That's a great subject for science fiction, and it's a great conversation to have with people. But as far as for like the amputee who's coming back from the war, or someone who's had a tragic accident and then now has lost a limb, the fact that they have bionic legs that have the ability to have a powered heel so that you can actually walk up a flight of stairs without dragging your prosthetic behind you, or without having a massive a learning curve on how to rewalk again and stuff like that, and how they're able to get the prosthetics to work. So let's say you were an active skier and you love to do all these sports. That doesn't mean the fact that you lost your legs doesn't mean that that part of your life is gone. They can actually get you back to that now.
I'm just worried if they replace too many things, we'll all end up like Kim Kardashian. So,
well, that does bring up an interesting point. I mean, could we get to the point where, I mean, you hinted at this, but could we get to the point where, bionics is the new plastic surgery?
It's possible. I mean, it depends on how it's perceived. I mean, right now, if you look at that bionic arm that the FDA approved, I mean, it doesn't look like a regular arm, but so what? I mean, it depends on what becomes acceptable or what becomes deemed cool, I suppose.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up. You look at science fiction. I mean, first of all, you have that sort of moral thing. You look at the Cybermen, or you look at Star Trek's The Borg, and it's about loss of self, loss of individuality.
Right.
You give yourself up to the machine. That's like a common trope when you have like a cybernetic organism. Do you think that's a real danger, or is that again a sci-fi flourish?
Well, I think that there's a lot of different ways to look at that. I mean, obviously, with the Borg Collective and stuff like that, the idea is, and if you look at some of the body snatcher type of science fiction, that is very similar to what's going on with the Borg or with the Cybermen. A lot of that was political, and we normally don't go political on Dr. Geek's Laboratory, but I mean, the idea here was the idea of individuality and personal liberty, and that if you become part of the collective, you're not, your value as an individual is less, and it's, and actually frowned upon. I that would actually be more social engineering as to how people adapt to, would say, the net. I mean, another way to put this is, how everybody is obsessed with their smartphones, and you can't really be away from it. And your friends post you on Facebook or on Twitter and all that sort of stuff, and you're constantly getting status updates. Well, if you're able to add some a bionic implant so that you can actually jack directly into the net, you could actually simulate things like telepathy and really know what's on your friend's mind. And stuff like that. And so if that's how you build relationships with one another, you could see where there could be a push to be part of the collective, and people could maybe distrust individuals that are not connected because they can't read their mind.
And on that note, do you think the more that we go into technology, the more of our humanity that we lose? Because like you said, an example, when a family goes to the dinner table, what are they doing? They're not eating, they're not conversing, they're actually on their phones, and some of them are texting to each other across from the dinner table. Do we start losing that humanity over time? And it does kind of scare me if we do lose that individuality, because I think that's what makes us special, is who we are.
Yeah, well, the how I view that is the technology itself is not the issue. It's how you use it and how you value what you do with it. I think that it's like the person who is developing the bionic replacements that are going to be doing great things for people who desperately need them. That is someone who is demonstrating the most of human potential out there, and it's not intended to devalue humanity. It's how that invention is then repurposed by other people where that could become an issue. So the pursuit of technology and the growth of technology in itself is not the issue. It's how we deal with it, and that's a continuing human thing, and that's another way to put it. On Dr. Geek's Laboratory, you'll see that we kind of have a can-do spirit. I'm trying very subtly to try to present the idea that, the future can be bright, it can be possible, you can make it what you want it to be, rather than the constant dystopia. I mean, if I looked at the last 10 films that came out that deal with the future, it's all about the end of the world as we know it, either some form of zombie apocalypse or some dystopian future. And I think there's an equally opposite way of approaching it, and it's equally as possible. It's up to us.
What's disappointing, Scott, is if the end of the world does come up, everybody will be on their phones taking pictures of it along the way as it crashes on the earth.
Wait, right, and if the zombie apocalypse is coming, they're going to take a selfie first. I know. I know.
But still.
Yeah. Oh my God! Look at my neighbors; they've gone zombified.
Yes, exactly.
Imagine zombie tweets.
No. Well,
brain of McDonald's worker, not healthy. hashtag.
Well, that's why the idea that we can strive for a better future and that there's nothing wrong with being inspired by fiction. I mean, that's kind of our whole shtick, and it's being presented in a completely new way. Actually, at the end of September, we're doing Doctor Geek's Science Fair. And it's being presented on behalf of the South Florida Museum. We have a really great partnership with them, and it was wonderful. Our initial conversations with them started off with them saying, well, you can have like a little exhibit, in the atrium or something like that. And after talking to their people and giving them an example of some of the things that we do, we've actually now taken over the entire museum. Every aspect of that museum is going to be connected to the Dr. Geek Science Fair. And so it'll be like a full-day expo where we are going to actually combine a science fiction convention and a good old-fashioned science fair. And we're going to have presenters and we're going to have panel discussions. We're going to have planetarium shows. We're going to have kids coming from all around actually doing presentations about science inspired by fiction. It's going to be a great thing, and I'm just so thrilled because Dr. Geek Science Fair was something that I wanted to do along with the audio show. The audio show is fun, and it's a lot of good entertainment, but doing things like the science fair, that's kind of what this was all about.
I want to go now. I want to go.
Yeah, it's Dr. Geek Science Fair, September 27th, and what's really, really awesome is the museum is working with us to try to make this as accessible to everybody.
No, it's at the South Florida Museum. Where is that?
In Bradenton, Florida.
It's in Bradenton.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you
I'll
want
have to go up to that.
if you want more information, go to drgeeklab.com and click on Science Fair, and there'll be posts about it, and you can get the links for it.
And the tickets are $10 in advance.
Yep. And that's because the planetarium only has so many seats, and that's where the Ken Spivey Band's going to perform.
Ooh,
that's where all of
we love the Ken Spivey Band.
Oh yeah, they're awesome, and that's also where all the panel discussions are going to be. So if you want to make sure you have a seat for that, definitely get tickets in advance. And $10, I mean, that's cheaper than a movie at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
nice.
We're trying to make it as accessible as everything, and it was awesome that they really have seen our vision, are part of it, and we're going to have the local Ghostbusters group is going to show up, and that's going to be nice. And we actually have a gentleman who has built a replica of the 1950s time machine from the George Powell movie, and we're actually going to tie that in to the story that we're telling. And the people who are going around to the exhibits in the museum itself will be connected through the time machine. So it's going to be pretty awesome.
Please, no Morlocks. If I go to this, I kind of want to be able to enjoy it without having
without the man eating Morlocks.
Yeah, without the man eating Morlocks. Yeah, please, no man eating Morlocks.
No, but yeah, the South Florida Museum in Bradenton is a wonderful facility. They have a brand new, state-of-the-art planetarium, and it's really great. We're actually going to be doing a planetarium show for them.
Oh wow!
And if someone had asked me, 2 years ago, so Dr. Viguie, are you, do you think you'll be doing theme park style attractions? And you're like, well, I didn't think that's where I was going, but heck, it was a lot of fun to do.
I've heard that there are two conflicting philosophies about extraterrestrial life. One says that mathematically there should be a chance with other galaxies and other distant planets and all that we should see life. Another philosophy says that if there is, they should have seen us by now. We should have seen them. What is your take on life out there?
Oh, easy. Mathematically, it has to exist out there. And as far as anyone who says that we should have known by now or have stuff like that, I think that the universe is a big, big, big place. And, we've spent a long time with Project SETI searching the skies for a signal. And so far we haven't found anything conclusive. But, when I think about that, I think about the fact that, SETI is looking for radio waves or something along those lines, something that is traveling at the speed of light that will show some sort of artificial presence, something that it will be you could distinguish from background noise. Something not, it won't necessarily be a message that says all these worlds are yours except Europa. But it gets, just some sort of signal, right? Well, that's a very good idea. Unfortunately, if you remember a few years ago, our government here in the United States actually passed a law that said that we had to go digital. And while there is still a digital signal being transmitted over the air, eventually that's going to stop. And because of the way that works, let's say another 100 years from now, we're not going to be transmitting as much radio signals and other things outside into the universe. So if you're looking at something that is far more advanced than us, and if they had a technological trajectory anywhere similar to us, then by the time they're able to travel the stars with any sort of consistency, like, let's say, Firefly or Doctor Who, a Future or Star Trek or something along that lines, they may not be transmitting a signal that would look anything like what we're looking for, and yet they're right there. So, if we're going dark and something much more advanced than us has been dark for a long, long time, we could be staring right at it and just don't know it.
Well, I mean, if I remember correctly, in Star Trek First Contact, the whole reason the Vulcans came to us was because we finally had a warp signature.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. They were going to ignore us until we did that.
Exactly. Okay, what about the what about getting into philosophy and history for a moment?
Sure.
Well, the concern would be, if you look at world history, when the Europeans came to the shores of the Americas, you had indigenous tribes that were wiped out. Either the Europeans brought diseases that the Indians are not familiar with, or, you had, this is my thunder stick, and they conquered them and enslaved them.
Right.
What about the danger? What about the danger that we do attract something and they go, oh, look at these cute little, inhabitants with their Twitter or whatever they call it. Let's just take over, because they're misusing their stuff. We could do a lot better with this planet. So, let's take the burden of ownership away from them.
I don't know what they're complaining about. We're basically sharing this planet 50-50 with them. If something like that happened, I mean, it's always kind of like, be careful what you might wish for because it might happen to you. It's very possible that if we ever did attract something that was so advanced, that there's a possibility we might not necessarily be the top of the totem pole again. So, that there's an issue about that. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go looking. I really think that the process it takes to be able to understand how to go faster and further into space and to how to live out there and how to adapt, there'll be a lot of other changes. So hopefully we won't necessarily be the same people that were the ones that confronted the Native Americans and so forth. I mean,
so hopefully the shoe won't be on the other foot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's there's a lot more development to go, and that's why it's important. I mean, right now, Dragon capsule, the latest version of it, is actually being presented as a viable way of getting to the International Space Station, which is awesome, and we should definitely do that, or some vehicle like it, whatever that ultimately is. But we shouldn't stop with going to the ISS. I think we should go to the moon and beyond, and open ourselves up to the possibility of running into our neighbors out there. Because it's important, because there is only one Earth at the moment, and if one way to make sure that we all survive is to basically go out there and colonize.
Speaking of running into our neighbors, where can we run into you besides the Dr. Geek Science Fair?
Okay. So, if you go to drgeeklab.com and go on our homepage, you'll see a list of next appearances. So, the next thing I'm going to be doing is a series of library events. The Deltona Regional Library on June 25th, and then the Hart Memorial Central Library in Osceola County on the 28th of June, and also the 26th of July. And then I'm going to be a guest of DragonCon from August 29th to September 1st.
Oh, yeah.
And then a Fanboy Expo, September 12th to the 14th. And then finally, at the end of the year, Doctor Geek Science Fair. It's really going to be kind of fun, especially DragonCon.
Yeah, an interesting note about Fanboy Expo is that, we were talking about bionics earlier. Lee Majors is going to be there.
Yes.
The Bionic Man, $1 million man, is going to be at Fanboy Expo.
And if I can get an ident bumper from Lee Majors,
oh, wow.
It would be awesome.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you read up a little bit, speaking about bionics really quickly, if you go and click About Me on the Dr. Geek page, you'll find out that I have cerebral palsy. And I was one of the first people to actually go through the process of orthopedic surgery to correct the physical issues that derive from CP.
So you are bionic.
So in a way, yeah. And what was really cool was that they were doing all this experimental work, and I think I was seen by every doctor on the planet, and they were trying to explain to a very small boy, what they're doing, and the idea that they're going to make me better, faster, stronger. And they always knew that I loved the $6 million man. So
hopefully what you had to go through didn't cost you $6 million.
Right, exactly. Well, when they actually got to the point where I was able to take my first steps and everything, everybody was so thrilled. But apparently, I was a little pouty about it, and I wasn't smiling. And one of the doctors raced over and said, "Are you in pain? What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I'm not making the noise." And because you keep telling this small boy that you're going to, make them better, faster, smarter, and I'm watching the Bionic Man, I figured, right? Yeah, exactly. So now you can understand where my fascination between science and fiction and technology all started. The Bionics episodes are actually very special to me because, like I said, I'm an actor, author, attorney, archaeologist that I have to move on to the bees. Well, I'm already kind of bionic, so there you go.
Like I said, the rattling a list off like that, he's Buckaroo Bonzai. Forget the Bionic Man. You're Buckaroo Bonzai.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
We dated ourselves just by mentioning the movie.
Okay, hey, Buckaroo Bonzai is awesome. Don't make fun of Buckaroo Bonzai. Get in the corner.
I watched it. I loved that movie when I was a kid. Today I'm just like, what was I watching?
Oh, come on.
It is great.
That's a crown jewel of my DVD collection. Do not make fun of Buckaroo Bonzai.
And I think it is a war crime that there was not a sequel, but
Thank you. Okay, you know what? Okay, there you go.
I would like to find out about the crime syndicate. Exactly. I really would.
I think he just proved how awesome a guest he is. He loves Buckaroo Bonzai.
Well, he is Dr. Geek.
Let me find out if Patrick has been able to pull out a Megaforce reference yet, or
yeah, we need to find that out.
I thought he did, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, I think he said he'd try, but we haven't heard word back. Maybe he just hasn't had the opportunity.
Scott, I'd like to thank you very much for agreeing to do it.
Oh, my pleasure. If I can ever be of any help again, just let me know.
Well, actually, you could be a great help. Can you get somebody to start working on power armor? I want forget jetpack. I want my power armor, darn it! All right, I want to actually be able to park outside my house my own giant, robot power armor.
Yeah, you know what? I'll talk to Tony next week. We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Cool. Well, Ed, you're getting a lot of things done. You're asking people and they're saying yes. This is amazing. Okay.
Who wouldn't want to have their own power armor?
Can't find cures for certain diseases, but yeah, we can keep it up for more than 4 hours with a little blue pill. So that's all I'm saying there.
Well, no, but if you keep it up for more than 4 hours,
oh, there you go.
Remember, this is a family podcast.
Yeah,
okay,
that's why my TARDIS is in the Playboy Mansion. So.
Oh, God.
That's right.
And once again, hey, Mrs. Christian-basel, how you doing?
So once again, Scott, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Oh, wow. That was a great interview. Scott Viguie is such a great guy. And Doctor Geek, thank you once again for doing the show.
Yeah. And truth be told, having spoken to Patrick and talking to him about Megaforce and then mentioning Buckaroo Bonzai with Doctor Geek, I'm trying to think, what other 80s cheese movies should we drop into the podcast?
Well, then Howard the Duck would be in line for that one. There.
What?
Howard the Duck.
Howard the Duck.
No,
Okay.
not Howard the Duck.
On that
I have
note, we're gonna end the
Velveeta
show.
written all over it for cheese.
Okay, guys. On that note, you forced it out of me. We're going to end the show. We're ending the show because of Howard the Duck.
Wow.
Tweet Streets of Fire. That's it. I gotta get one of our geekier guests to talk Streets of Fire.
Yeah, that'll work.
That's the next one. Streets of Fire.
Tweet us at markwho42. Go to our Facebook page, markwho42's WHOniverse. Go to our website and join the WHOniverse army, markwho42.net. If you have to email us, mark@markwho42.net, subject line, what the heck you want to put down, I don't care. Just put any subject line down. Listen to us on iTunes. Listen to us on Stitcher Radio. Listen to us on geekcast-radio.com. Listen to us on florida-geek-scene.com. Listen to us anywhere, but most important, listen to us. I'm Mark Baumgarten, along with Christian-basel, Eduardo-m-Freyre, and the ever-silent Trish Helm. Hi, Trish. Oh, there she is.
She's still recovering from her cold. Jeez.
I know. She's got a cold. We will be back next week with our very special guest, Ken Spivey. Oh, the ratings just went up. Okay, listen to us next time.
Mark-Who42's WHOniverse has been written and presented by Mark Baumgarten, Patricia Helm, Eduardo-m-Freyre, and christian-basel. We'd like to thank our special guest, Dr. Geek himself, Scott Viguie, for being on the show. This show is edited, produced, and directed by Mark Baumgarten. Please visit markwho42.net and register to join and be a part of the WHOniverse Army. We can also be heard on iTunes, the Stitcher Radio app, World of Who, Podkicker, geekcast-radio.com, and florida-geek-scene.com. Tweet us at markwho42 and check out our Facebook page, Mark-Who42's WHOniverse. We can be contacted by email at mark@markwho42.net with the subject line $?. Doctor Who and its properties are owned by the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. This podcast is owned and copyrighted by Mark Baumgarten, 2014.